Hello, welcome to Being the Head. I'm Jacqui LaMaitre.
And I'm Jane McNally, and we're your co hosts for today's episode, which is all about the loneliest job.
So, this podcast is for anyone who's ever led a school and quietly wondered, how much more can I give? Because headship, as we both know, comes at a human cost.
We've both lived it, and now we work along school leaders across the country who are carrying huge responsibilities, often with very little support. So, this podcast creates space for truth, connection, and practical help.
It's time to talk openly about what it really means to be the head and how to survive it with your well-being and integrity intact. Today, we're naming the loneliness that hides behind the office door.
And exploring how connection keeps leaders afloat when no one else sees the weight.
So we've got some headlines that have just been kind of released. And one of them is 14% of senior leaders say they always or often feel isolated at work. And then 1 in 6 of educational staff report frequent loneliness, double the national rate. So how does this statistic land with you personally, Jane? What do you think?
I think it's. I think. I think it's probably a little bit more than that.
Yeah,
I
I
think
always think
as
that.
I think so because I think as leaders, I don't think we easily admit that we're lonely because I think we're there trying to solve the problem for everyone. But actually, I personally found headship a really lonely place to be, particularly when you were dealing with things that you couldn't discuss with other members of the senior leadership team, and keeping that sort of professional sort of barrier. But yeah,
I
I
mean, your
think it's a
mind
little
does
higher.
go to like the obvious one, which is the Ofsted kind of, you had to keep that under wraps, didn't it? And all the things that
Yeah,
happened around. Thank goodness we don't have to do that now. You can share that. But that other side of it is that safeguarding that you can't share so much and you're trying to carry all of that.
our issues like grievance and capability and disciplinary, those are things that you cannot discuss, and they're quite heavy burdens to bear.
I think those are one of the meatiest ones I think that you come across when you first come into headship. I don't know. But I remember dealing with some of them. And of course, what other people see of HR issues is they don't know all the facts. So they're very quick to judge, but they can't be privy to all the facts that you've got. It's very, very difficult to keep that to yourself. And I think I always wonder when, if you've got a partner at home that's also in education that can understand it, maybe that's better. Some people say it's worse, some people it's better, but you can't really go home and offload it if somebody doesn't really understand the way that you're having to deal with it, especially if they're not in education because they're in industry and it's a hire and fire 'em situation. Whereas we've got, the protected rights that these people have that you have to go through. I mean, you're smiling and laughing. The listeners can't see that, but I presume your brain is going into how many different scenarios you've actually had to deal with.
Yeah, there are, and I'm just saying what you're picking up on about having, somebody at home that understands education. I do,
Mm.
so I can have that. But when I discuss it, when you sort of meet up with family and our family are in industry in the private sector, they look at me as if like, well, what's the problem? Like you just said, Farah, they've got this, doesn't it? And it's like, no. But I think it's also the emotion that's all wrapped around some of these. Well, certainly safeguarding and some of these HRs, it's such emotive issues that you're dealing with that the policy and the procedure gets a little bit blurred because people are just get that wrapped up around that emotion, how that person is feeling, how that person is made to feel, which is absolutely, you have to keep that in mind. But at the end of the day, there is a process and policy that as leaders we have to follow, whether we like it or not. We have to follow it. I mean,
Yeah, and do you think? I mean, I always thought I was going to write a book. They've done what? because the amount of bonkers things that you come across as a leader is that you think, I can't believe they've done that. What sane person would actually do that? And I bet there's loads of listeners who can relate to that, where you're like, your brain is like addled about how would you think that was the same thing to be doing? And you have to unpick that, and the amount of paperwork and different things that you have to deal with, and at different levels. I mean, I've dealt with, disciplinaries at all different levels for anybody pretty much who's involved in a school. I've had to, and you've probably the same as well. And the amount of time that takes to investigate it and do different things. But yeah, I think I've definitely got a book inside me of they've done what. Other than that, but
Yeah.
I mean, what kept you sane when you did that then, Jay? What do you think? Did you have any strategies to kind of, because the safeguarding one was always the hardest one for me, that, when you're going into child protection meetings and you're having to sit and listen to all of that as well, and try and keep, and me, I'm not very good with my facial expressions, because my facial expressions usually give me away massively. But the HR side of it, you can kind of deal with, because they've done something and you're going through a process. And although everybody can't see it, people aren't stupid in school so much. They would see that, you would hope. But the safeguarding is so locked down, and you're privy to the most challenging
Horrendous.
information, aren't you?
Yeah.
Did you have any strategies, did you think?
I think it's actually finding somebody you can trust that is
Yeah.
removed, where you can offload. I think with regards safeguarding, something that they brought into the trust that I work, one of the trusts I've worked for, was actually a reflective supervision, where DSLs could come together, discuss cases anonymously, and a group posed questions around the case that had been presented, which then allowed the presenter to actually think through different approaches. And that actually was quite powerful. And I know it's mandatory in like nursing and the police and sort of emergency services, and it's not for education. But I think that's where we're missing a trick, because that really did empower the DSLs, not just their confidence but also their knowledge, because you were drawing from other people's knowledge and different perspectives, which broadened your perspective. So I think that was one. But for me, I think it was having somebody that I could just offload, and that was it. Once I was able to
I mean, that's
offload it.
phenomenal if you can do that. You do see it, in different professions, where they get that. Do you need that time to take out of
Yeah.
it? I mean, you have to build that in yourself. I remember where I was, the offices that we used to have to go to in one of the trusts I worked for was in the middle of a town, and I just used to go and sit in a busy coffee shop just to rebalance myself,
Yeah.
have a cake or a bun or
So,
something, you know, just get your head back round this, because nobody trains you for it at all, do they?
no.
You have to be quite resilient, and that's one of the words that I think, for headship, you have to be resilient, don't you, in order to take those on, and know where you can go for help if you do need that help.
And not be afraid. I
Yeah.
think not be afraid to ask for help. I think another strategy, if I was having a bad day, I'd always go and sit in reception classroom with the children,
Yeah.
because nothing
Yeah.
grounds you more and actually brings you back to why you're doing the job and why you're making those difficult decisions, because actually that's what that is, that sort of pure innocence. So Jacqui, what systemic factors feed leadership isolation in your opinion?
Oh, workload is a massive one, isn't it? And also, I think it's that, when you sit in a course and you really haven't got a clue what's going on. That for
Yeah.
me is always, sometimes, I mean, there aren't many that I sit in there, but there are a lot that, because I used to sit in courses and people would, I never used to say what I did. So I used to sit there very quietly and just sponge. And I loved to do that. But sometimes I sit there and think, is it just me that absolutely does not know what's going on here? But it's that fear. Oh, I'm not going to ask. I'm not going to ask. Because it's that fear of failure, isn't it? it's that, have I got something interesting to say? Do I need to say it? Do I not need to say it? Shall I just shut up and just listen to this banter going on? But I have not a clue what you're talking about, or I don't agree with what I still wouldn't say it. I think now I'd just still sit there and sponge and then come out afterwards. And I think I was on some training with a really brilliant chap who'd done some work on performance management and was doing it in a slightly different way. And I still, even though I've done what I've done, still didn't feel confident enough to ask the question. So I waited until everybody had gone and then asked the question. And I think that's a really interesting thing that in education, and whether anybody can relate to that. But I just don't feel, I think it's the fear of failure. I think education, more so than any other thing, and I've done some other jobs in my time, but education is a fear of failure, because I don't think we celebrate when we get those wins, do we?
No.
That
And
that's the issue, I think, in education, is nobody says, "Oh, well done, Jacqui, you've just got your scores to outstanding." I think I could count on one hand how many people said that to me.
no, but they don't. I think the further up you go in leadership, the less sort of not praise, but it's sort of like recognition that you've done something well. And we're still human beings, and I think it's still nice for someone actually to recognise and go out of the way and say, "Oh, that's a really good piece of work," or "That's worked really well. Thanks very much." But no, they don't. I think, and I think it's that
We're
imposter
very quick to
syndrome.
criticise.
Imposter syndrome. I think people also.
Yeah, I've heard about this. I don't know whether that. Some people say it doesn't exist. Some people say it does exist. I don't know. We're getting into. Is it psychology?
I think
Yeah,
so. It's an
with the
ology anyway.
It's an ology. It's
It's
definitely an
an
ology,
ology.
isn't it? Oh,
Okay, classroom crisis, real challenges from the front. So, Jacqui, can you recall really concerned you and what happened?
I remember being on site as a deputy head and having to deal with a parent who came to collect a child, and the parent was totally intoxicated and not knowing what to do, because I'd not been given that sort of experience. So that was one of my first kind of, oh no, I'm in a position now that I'm going to make decisions for children that I really have to make, and I have to get it right for children. She was going to get into a car with that child as well. She was going to get into a car and take the child, and she clearly couldn't even walk. But the fear of getting it wrong when it's so crucial at the end of the school day, you are stopping a child going home with somebody that they know they want to go home with, but in order to keep them safe. It's those sort of decisions, I think, that really, really test you, don't you?
They do.
So
That's your safeguarding. Safeguarding and send are two sort of areas that you think, oh my goodness, if I get this wrong, this is going to have quite a significant impact on this child. And
because there is in the
absolutely,
back of your mind that you're going to be challenged at every point on these decisions.
yes. I mean, I think that's the one key message that I have drilled home time and time again to all staff in schools, that everybody's responsible for safeguarding. And when you log a concern, you need to make sure that it's got no opinion, but it is pure fact, but it's detailed facts down to not just what was said, what was done, what was seen, but actually the body language, because at the end of the day, that piece of paper could one day end up in a court case. And the last thing I would want, and I know lots of staff in education, nobody would want their piece of, or that piece of evidence to be that one thing that could collapse a case.
So if you've got nobody there and you didn't have that reflective, remind me what you called it,
Reflective supervision.
supervision. Oh, well,
Yeah.
that didn't exist. I didn't have any
No.
reflective supervision. So brilliant that that's coming in now, isn't it? What did you do if nobody was available?
I mean, if there was nobody available in school, I would call a friend. I'd call another head teacher, or I would call the family front door in the local area that we are, but sort of the local safeguarding advisory for your particular local authority, and ask for some advice there.
Yeah.
I was really lucky to work in Warwickshire, where at the time, there was really good safeguarding lead. He was absolutely brilliant, and he was on the end of the phone, and his advice was really good. And he wasn't from education; he was from social services. But it was really good. So I think that there's that, because I think for me to make that decision, I needed to bounce my ideas, my thoughts, and get advice off before actually acting, because it is that fear of getting it wrong. And it's not that we're making that decision, but actually that it could significantly impact a family's life. So it's making sure we've got it right and all the evidence we can. It's hard. It's really hard.
It's a hard part of the job, isn't it? There that
Yeah.
you carry this weight of all these, and you worry about it, and you do internalize it, and you do take it home without a shadow of a doubt. You do worry about these children when you're off site, aren't you?
Yeah. Well, I still remember a case, and I can still remember the name of the child, and it was my first year as an NQT. So that's and looking back, I am absolutely convinced that this child's lived experience of home, there was some form of abuse around it when I look. And I still feel guilty that I wasn't able to do anything about it,
Yeah.
because it just, at that time, you had to have so much so much evidence before social services would look at it. And that's 30 years ago.
Mm.
Doesn't ever leave.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But you have, again, it's those strategies, isn't it? And what we do to keep ourselves going, because, if you've got constant pressures from all different angles, you can see how lonely this job can be if you don't reach out. I think one of the things that I'm very insistent of is I run a head teachers briefing, and it has to be done face to face. You have to get them in the room, and you could do these briefings online, and I think a lot of people do a lot of briefings online and do very well. But for me, it's that getting people in the room and knowing that they're in a safe space where they can offload to other people that they've got these challenges. And I know I've been approached by other kind of people in the sector, like local authorities and social services, and they want to come and sit on it because they want to learn, which is lovely. But it's not for them. It's for my head teachers with a safe space so they can come, have a nice cup of coffee, be in a nice environment, and just sit and listen to the updates, but also have that networking.
Yeah.
And anybody who says anything about conferences or, courses, it's the networking. Oh, what are you doing? And what would you do if you did this? That's the power of it, the power of everybody knowing that actually you're not on your own. There are other people who've been through that. I mean, they might be more bonkers than yours. And that's lovely to hear, because you then think, oh, I'm not the only one who has to go through all of this. I think that's one of the most important things is making sure networking. Networking is the best. Yeah.
Yeah.
The wisdom that we wish we'd known sooner. If I only knew. So, Jane, what belief kept you from asking people for help?
That there wasn't anything there wasn't anything wrong, or I should know the answer. And it wasn't so much colleagues, peers in other schools, it was more people within the school. And I think certainly at the start of my leadership, trying to get that fine balance of delegating and actually saying to somebody, I don't have all the answers. I don't know all the answers. What do you think? Because I think you go in and you think to yourself, I should know everything because I'm the head teacher, and people are coming to you asking those questions. Well, actually, you don't. And I think it's getting that straight in your head first, is actually you don't have all the answers, and you're never going to have all the answers, but you need to sort of think about how you can use the people skills around you to sort of, and surround yourself by people who's got that information, and be brave and ask the questions. Because if you're going to ask your staff to ask you questions, then you're going to have to sort of model that. So I think for me, It was that belief that as a head teacher, certainly as a new head teacher, I should know everything and I should be the fount of all knowledge. That's not the case. Absolutely not the case.
And
I know.
admitting you don't know.
Yeah, yeah, admitting it. It's
Yeah.
really hard. I mean, what about you,
Mm.
Jacqui? What shifted once you let someone in?
I think sustainability for the role. I think a lot. I mean, on a personal level, I think I could sleep.
Yeah.
I think that's that. I remember talking to a director of education when I first started. He said, "Oh, she has a note thing by her bed, and she used to write down her ideas in the middle of the night." I couldn't do that. That's just not me. But I get why she used to do that, because she was able to park things and then she could sleep. So for me, I was really lucky to have a brilliant coach who wasn't in education, who I could go and say anything to. And she would say things like, "But why are you doing that, Jacqui? Why is that?" And you've never had time to reflect on things. You think, yeah, why am I doing that? Why am I making that even harder for myself? I met a head that I coached recently, and he said one of the things he remembers, and you forget these things, is I'd advised him to spend some money on an online platform that did all his safeguarding training and his manual lifting training, and I just said, just buy it. Just buy it. It's going to cost you a lot of money, but just buy it. It'll save your sanity. And he relayed that back to me, and I couldn't even remember doing that, but it sounded like me. You know, yes, it's going to cost you, but actually, when you look at the time it's going to spend you to organise all these trainings and get individual trainers in and do all this, just buy the online package. So it's those sorts of things. So what shifted for me was being able to be more at comfort with myself, I think, and the decisions that I made. So I think that was what happened.
I think just picking up what you said about lack of time to be reflective, and I think as if you're new to headship or if you've been doing headship a long time, is be very mindful to build in time to reflect every single week. Because if you don't put it in like you'd put a meeting, you won't ever get to do it. And then it's just like your famous phrase, it's like whack-a-mole, because that's all you spend all day doing is reacting, 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 reacting. When actually, when are you giving yourself the opportunity to be strategic? So I think that's another tip I think I would give people.
Yeah, giving yourself time to do that. I think that the research was around 80% strategic to turn a school around. Somebody said to me, I don't know where they got it from, but I used to get that in my head. Well, I haven't done 80% strategic at all. I've been doing whack-a-mole again and just trying to spin the plates to do. And I was talking to her head yesterday, and she said she's done 3 14-hour days because she's had so many things after, like governors meetings and things like that. 3 14-hour days straight.
That,
It's not sustainable, is it?
no.
Really, it's not sustainable for that.
But the sad thing, though, Jacqui, that's the norm rather than the exception.
I know.
That is
Yeah.
the norm. I mean, this people don't realise what goes on after the children go at 3:30. But that 14-hour days is more the norm than the exception, and something's got to change.
Yeah. I mean, I was doing that, and then weekends as well. Your weekends.
Weekends and holidays and.
Yeah, as I mean, I was working Saturdays just to keep on top of things when I was an exec head. So I was working every Saturday. I still regularly do work Saturdays just to keep on top of things. But now it's at my choice rather than I've got to do this because the school depends on it. So
Okay, so ask the heads your questions and our honest answers. So the question is this week is, who do you talk to when everyone turns to you? So Jacqui, how have you built a peer support trio?
So you've got to have that trust. I think that's the most important thing. You've got to have people that you can share things with, and then it's not going to go any further. And sometimes you just have to say, don't repeat this, but X, Y, and Z. So you've got to have that peer support. I was one of the first exec heads over the country, so nobody really knew. We didn't know what we were doing. There was no job descriptions for exec heads. There was nothing out there. We were just kind of making it up as we were going on. So it's difficult to find somebody who really is uniquely mirroring what you're doing, but you will find people who have had similar experiences, who've gone through it and can share that. So it's finding somebody that you can trust, but also they see you in a room and they ask about you. And that's really important. I think we don't do as much. I think we're better now. There was nothing about well-being when I first became a head. There was just nothing. And I think it's more prevalent now that you need those peers around you just to give you that boost and, say, actually, you're doing a really good job under the circumstances. What does radical honesty look like in those calls, do you think?
For me, I think it's having the trust in the person you're speaking to, and not just be honest about the issue that you're dealing with, but how it's affecting you emotionally. And I think that's the hardest part, is actually not wearing your heart on the sleeve, but actually with that person in that trusting conversation, is actually saying how it's making you feel. Because I think we tend to
Yeah.
hide our emotions, and actually those emotions will impact on your health if you keep stuffing them down and putting a box in them. So I think for me, radical honesty would be, yes, you discuss the situation and the problem, but how it's actually making you feel,
Mm,
and not to
yeah.
shy away from that.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely.
Okay, moment of mindfulness. So we talked about, it's the loneliest job. But actually, as human beings, we tend to sort of look at what's really negative. So this week, I think if you want to take this challenge, is set aside 5 minutes, and I want you to list all the things that you are grateful for, and think about the small things. You got up and heard the birds this morning, or the fact that it's really it's sunny, or you've been able to dry your washing out on the washing line, or you've had 5 minutes extra in bed. It doesn't matter how big or how small, but just set aside 5 minutes for you to list as many things as you can of all the things that you're grateful for, and try and build that into a regular thing, because it'll actually help you shift your mindset a little bit. So I think that's just my tip. My moment of mindfulness this week is start writing what you're grateful for.
And I think the other thing that I love doing is sending little notes to people. You can work out a head's email address. And I mean, I know because I've worked in one local authority for 35 years, so I know pretty much everybody. But I love reading where people have done really well in different things. Either it's in the news or it's an Ofsted. And I just send them an email to say, I know how hard that was. Congratulations, you've done really well. Doing something like that, because as I said at the start, that I could count on one hand the amount of people who kind of celebrated when we made a success of what we were doing, and people told us we couldn't do it and you wouldn't be able to do it, and to turn around, and I think it was brilliant that we did do it, but nobody really celebrated. It then becomes, it's accepted that that's what you do, but actually the hard work, it's that iceberg effect, what you actually see to what's actually gone on to produce that. So anybody you can write to or thank, or those little acts of kindness go such a long way, especially in education. And as higher you get, you don't get that recognition from parents or whatever. You do as a class teacher. When you first start as a class teacher, you get so much recognition because the children go home and they absolutely adore you, and you get all these things. As you go further up, the job gets more and more difficult, but the recognition just diminishes. You're lucky if you go away with like one sunflower at the end of the term. I think I did get one sunflower. And then you start thinking, well, is it me? Am I? Yeah.
Okay, Jacqui. So what in your leadership journal gets turned to the most?
Oh, what do I pull on, do you think, the most when I'm
I
doing
think so,
that? I think
yeah.
listening. I think listening is something I had to learn, and I'm still not very good at it. Well, I am and I'm not. I like to get my voice heard. I'm much better at that, I think, now than I did. I'm not the shrinking violet. And sometimes that might come across as I'm jumping in or I'm going. So I think listening my listening is what I would say I use the most now. Is to, I mean, I was always good at sponging and just sitting back, but actually actively listening to heads and hearing what they're not saying. I had a very good director of education who used to talk to that. What are they not saying, Jacqui, when you're talking to them? Listen to them. What are they not telling you? Or when they're moaning about things, then why are they moaning about this? I haven't been able to get this done. I haven't been able to get that done. And but what are they not telling you? And having that flip when you've got that listening skill. So yeah, I think that would be where I turn to most, sitting and sponging and listening. So Jane, how does writing vent pages protect your mental space then, do you think?
Oh, it does. I have a file called
I
have a P file. And if I get something that I'm finding quite sort of difficult to deal with, I write it all down and I pop it in my P file.
What does P stand for then? Can you say what P stands?
I couldn't possibly say
that.
Yeah,
You've got an
a
actual file that you write things. Wow, and does that help?
Absolutely, because then at the end of the term, I take it and I burn it all.
Oh, I see. So you just do it for 1 year. You haven't got like 35 years.
Oh, God, no. Oh, good God. I'd be swimming in paper if that was the case.
That's classic.
So,
I think that's a brilliant idea. So you write that, so you have a little notebook or something.
Oh, everything goes in the notebook, and then I keep, because I always put it at the back of my diary. I'm very old fashioned. I still have a paper diary, and I keep it for 5 years, and then those that are over 5 years, every summer I have a nice bonfire and burn it and just release it off up there. And of course,
that's really interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I find that really cathartic.
Where did you learn that one from then? Where did that come from?
Somebody told me about it. I can't remember who it was. Someone said, look, if you're having a really bad day, because I sort of quite responsive. I need to learn to stop and think before I react. So they said, always write what you're going to, what you really want to say, and then put it in a file. And that's what I do, because I get it all out.
Yeah, I've done that. Write the email you want to send,
that's it,
but don't send it.
But
Very
it's everything,
therapeutic.
Every conversation, everything, everything that's really irritated me, I sort of write it down and then I burn it. Yeah.
Have you burnt this year's yet?
No, I've got to keep it 5 years because you never know. No, though it's 5 years behind. Okay.
Well, it's going to be a big bonfire then.
Yeah.
Oh. I wonder if you have like different 5 years of your careers. Which 5 years has got the biggest file?
Actually, they say that would be, wouldn't it? Yeah. I always panic when I sort of leave my diary and things, because I always think, oh my God, if anyone got their hands on my diary.
Oh, I think that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Connection is resilient, so reach out today. Even a quick message counts.
So here are some key resources you might want to keep close. So we will leave these in the notes section, but Education Support Helpline, there is a Heads Up network. There's also the DFE School Leader Wellbeing Charter and Supervision for School Leaders.
If this episode helped, please share it with a colleague and subscribe for more conversations about what it really means to be the head.
Thanks for joining us on Being the Head, the human cost of leading schools. We see you, we stand with you, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.